Welcome to the Paul Leslie Hour's commentary of the June 27th Trump v. Biden debate on CNN. Joining Paul are commentators Robert McCready and Wyatt Torosian. You can help this content by subscribing to the Paul Leslie Hour on YouTube. And with that, let the commentary begin.
Okay, that makes three of us.
To turn off the CNN coverage in the background. Or maybe I'll leave it on just for muted, just for fun.
I turned it off.
I've never seen so many looks of worry.
I know. Anderson Cooper just seemed so sad when he came on right afterwards.
Grim. It's grim.
Oh, it's horrible.
I'm wearing my Trump in and out and in shirt that I got. There was a vendor out front of my local grocery store, and I had to support.
Well, zoom out a little. I want to see the shirt.
Sure. So it has the in and out logo, and it says Trump in 2016 and out 2020 and in 2024 again. It's a lot of fun. I was like, as soon as he's like, yeah, I just got that in. I was like, okay, I need to buy this.
American ingenuity.
Yes.
So how would you, in one word, how would y'all describe that debate?
Wow, that's hard. Wyatt?
I was going to say, Paul, take the floor. One word.
It's hard to put it into one word.
Ghastly.
Ghastly. Why do you say ghastly?
I think it encompasses the range of reactions to it, from Republicans who saw what Trump did to Biden tonight, to the horrified Democrats watching, this hour and a half. Absolute bloodbath.
If I have to find a word to describe it, if I have to sum it all up, I would say it was consistent. It was consistent. It was like watching a boxing match where you see there's really no lags in the action. It's just punch, punch, punch. Now, one person was causing more damage, I think, with his punches. And that would be Trump. I think Trump was giving more damage than he was getting.
I would agree with that. And I think the reason is because of the one word I would use to describe the debate, and it was reanimated. It seemed like Biden was a reanimated corpse. Like, it's alive, but it's not as good as the original version. It was just like, especially at the very beginning, I felt like that woman said thank you and cut him off when he started to ramble and go crazy. Thank you.
Right. Right.
And so it was just like he was laying in the just hitting one of those bags. He wasn't a boxing match. He was shadow boxing, and that's what Biden was. And that when he said, he talked about Medicare, when Biden said we beat Medicare, I kind of thought it seems like right there Trump should just make fun of his words, and then Trump said he did beat Medicare, he beat it to death,
right?
and that's really what he could have done all night long, is just take one little word and just twist it. Because I don't know, how did they prepare Biden for this? What did they do to get him this good, which wasn't that good? Like, how did he remember all of this?
Well, that was the thing that I noticed early on, from the very first question. He was answering the question, which is more than he normally does. But it very, very much was evident that he had memorized that answer. He knew it was coming, and he was reciting it. He was just kind of slowly saying it as if he had said it for the 50th time. At the very, very beginning, he was just kind of, his voice was a little creaky at first, and it just seemed like, okay, you've said this a number of times, haven't you?
And you mean for every question?
Well, especially at the beginning, it seemed so rehearsed. He just was kind of like, he was talking slowly, his voice was creaky, but it didn't seem like it was a genuine answer that came from his head. It seemed like he was just kind of like, oh, just like I was doing for the handlers, for the 100th time, I'm answering this question again.
Yeah, just talking points.
Yeah.
It seemed like they almost kind of fit. I was thinking, man, it's like he's got things that can just go anywhere.
Exactly.
It's interesting hearing this feedback because it really sounds like the bar was on the floor. I mean, him like just standing for the entire hour and 30 minutes was enough.
Right.
And I think it's, people had said on Twitter, he probably got the questions ahead of time, and who knows if that's true, maybe. I mean, there's a general idea of what they're going to ask. And especially it being the first debate, there's some main topics. In later debates, they usually get more unusual with questions, especially if they do like a town hall when the audience can ask questions and they start asking more personal questions about people's families and things like that. So there was like, okay, we have the main topics. We have Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, These are the beats. I think that when you're in politics for over 50 years, if you don't know the facts and figures, then you're really stupid. He does have a working knowledge of things like that. You're not elected senator however many times he's been elected without that understanding, but it comes off as rehearsed and people being like, oh, he remembered a number. Again, then you're getting into the same sort of issue of like, okay, this is what we're celebrating.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of thought that too, Wyatt, that he had been doing this so long. It's kind of just old hat, kind of the same old. There wasn't any kind of new slam dunk that he had on Donald Trump. I do think that I was paying more attention to Biden because I thought that he had to do more work on I thought they had to do more work on him. Everybody was saying, how's Trump going to handle this? I was thinking about that a little bit, probably just because everyone was saying, how's he going to handle the mic being cut off? But then when it really got down to it, I thought I wasn't really interested in that. I wanted to see, did they put a neural link in him? I don't think they put a neural link in him. If they did put a neural link, that was not a good advertisement for one. like you'll talk like a corpse. Like no one wants that. If you want a neural link, you want to be getting up out of that wheelchair. You want to have that IQ up high. You want to be as good as you were before. You don't want to be like barely there. So I don't think he had a neural link, but I guess they did all the other drugs and vitamins and gave him an Ensure and stuff like that. It just wasn't enough. I don't think that I was impressed. It seemed significantly bad. And Trump, at first I thought, wow, he looks older. Visually, I thought they looked too old on the screen together. But then as the night go on, I just was more impressed by Biden, the way that he was. I think it reminds me of like, if he came into the DMV where I work, he wouldn't be able to fill out paperwork. He'd have to have someone help him at the point to where he needs to sign. I fill out the whole thing for him. I've done that before for people. He wouldn't be driving. A grandchild would be holding him by the elbow, taking him up to the counter, trying to get him to quit talking. And
hopefully not renew his license.
Right?
Just the ID card. Just the ID card.
Exactly. He's just that kind of thing. So that's what I was watching the whole time.
I would be very curious to know from both of you, do you think that there was one candidate? I mean, the three of us are people who pay a lot of attention to politics. Try to think about the average person who's watching this. Was there one person that you thought would resonate more with voters from tonight's performance?
After watching this, I think that people who were maybe not interested in Trump have been pushed in Trump's direction. And for the first time, you can talk for years and years about, oh, Biden's losing it or he slipped on a stair and stuff like that. And that just gets lost as noise. Anybody who watched this in a 5-minute segment or even in a 1-minute segment and who sees the clips of this will go, wait, maybe they're right. This guy's gone. And there you go. That's it. That's all that people needed to have as a takeaway from this. It almost didn't even matter what Trump said in this. There was a couple answers he gave that I wish were closer to the questions, but that's to be expected in any of these debate formats. But an undecided voter, who are the ones that we apparently base our entire system on, I don't know how they could watch this and be like, yeah, that guy on the right, like, he's doing really well. Mm-hmm. Like, he's thriving.
I looked around a little bit. I tried to avoid social media because I didn't want it to affect my opinion, but I looked around just a little bit. I saw a Spanish tweet and I translated it, and it was, we have someone who's a liar and someone who doesn't know what's going on. And then I saw a couple of Facebook posts, and it was the same thing. One person's a liar, one person has dementia. And that's significant because there's some kind of propaganda that's coming out they're picking up on, and they want to justify one candidate's dementia with the other candidate being a liar. But I wonder if that's just to get them to another place. And I don't necessarily think that Trump seemed like a liar. I think that might just be old hat propaganda. I was talking to someone last night, but he's such a liar. He only cares about himself. And I told the person, I said, well, that's just repeating news. I'm only interested in, raw news. And I don't think you watch raw news. You watch news that's filtered through someone else commentating. So, but I do think the fact that they're posting that, talking about his dementia, regular people,
right,
left-wing people, that is important. What about you? Do you think that Trump would appeal to quote-unquote normies?
I think so. Just because despite all of the efforts to try to mitigate a failing economy, to try to pretend, the border crisis, it's not so bad. I think people have enough awareness. They have enough observation. It's like the much repeated thing of, if you have a good economy, you don't need to publish articles under the premise of, hey, I know you think the economy is bad. It's not. You don't have to do that. And I think people have enough common sense that the normies, so to speak, are not resonating with Biden. I know that predictions are often the predecessor to regret later. But I have to say, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think Trump is going to win the election. I know that's a bold thing to say.
What do you think, Wyatt?
I agree. I think that, I thought maybe it was more wishful thinking, but after 2020, I thought if he runs again, he'll probably win. And there was a long time when there was a lot of doubt, and there was the whole DeSantis error and other things, and everything that could have gone right for him, despite everything going on, has gone right, including tonight. This could have been, he could have had mistakes. He could have stumbled. He could have sounded older. He could have sounded dry. He sounded on his game, lightweight, maybe a little bit quicker than he was even in 2020. And that was all he has to do. So I don't, at this point, I don't see how he doesn't. Even if they did try to replace with a candidate or something like that, that's, a whole other discussion I'm sure we'll get to, especially in light of the video that we put out and we all recorded for it. But what do you think, Robert?
I feel very complicated. I feel very conflicted when I think about him winning, because I'm not sure how fair the elections are. And so I think, are they going to let him win? Did we do enough work? Did he do enough work that they're going to say, oh, okay, well, it seems like you're going to win, so we're just going to let you have it? I don't know how that works. It seems likely, but I thought he was going to win in 2020. It felt like a win there. So it seems like a win. It seems like everybody's done everything they need to do. I think that they're doing more than they need to do. I think, Scott Pressler is really getting out the all systems approach to voting, which seems like that would help Trump win. And, and people like Laura are in charge and really putting that into the modes. So when I think about him winning, I feel conflicted because I don't think I can read it the way that I was reading it before. Now I'm like, well, I gotta let him. Is there enough people that are going to let this happen? If we had paper ballots, I would say, yeah, he would win. If we had paper ballots and they were counted by hand, I would say, yes, he would win. But now I just kind of think, well, if this happens, if this happens, if this happens, if this happens, yeah, then he could win. And then it doesn't seem like it matters how he did. But I thought that this debate was much better than the last debate that he had with Biden.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was too subdued.
Well, like you guys, I was trying to avoid any kind of interference that would change my opinions. But I watched just a couple of minutes of NBC. I watched through NBC News. And immediately, they did a kind of statement of, both sides had their good points, but then they immediately started to do damage control for Biden immediately. And they said, oh, well, Trump made a number of false statements tonight, and that's going to have to be worked out soon. And I was thinking, in real time, Trump was fact-checking many of the things that were said that Biden regurgitated that he knows have been disproven. They have been disproven even by mainstream media. And then, I'm trying to remember her name, Jackson, I think, she started saying that one of the top Democrats who was in the room was already talking about, to bring up a subject I've been beating to death, this guy said, we are going to have to begin the discussion, or we should begin the discussion about how to replace.
Oh, that's refreshing. I mean, when that was originally, earlier this year, I think it was like in February or March, there was the David Axelrod op-ed where David Axelrod, big Obama advisor, worked with Obama and Biden, said, hey, maybe we should finally, let him off the stage. And then about once a month, there was a major newspaper article saying his age is a consideration. He's not as sharp as he used to be. He rambles sometimes, like, the unnamed source articles that they are wont to do. But was it something that the people that we know and our neighbors or people that we grew up with, like people who are not so into politics as we are, it wasn't a common discussion. It was like, yeah, he's old, but whatever. Now, after tonight, the fact that everyone is saying it is a big deal. That's the Overton window shift that happened between 3 hours ago until now, is we've fully gone into the common discussion on the left now saying, yeah, he needs to be replaced. Even the headline, the front page of Drudge right now, they're saying how people are talking replacement. The chyron under the CNN debate saying Dems talking about replacement. Dems say nothing good happened tonight. I'm looking at Chuck Todd here on NBC with his, God, what kind of hairstyle is that? Like the comb through the split ends, and trying to make the case, but just they look like they're in shock about what happened. And I know that they have their little coterie of surrogates and things like that, but there's no papering over what happened. Now, you can say that Trump lied up and down, and people will say, okay, maybe he said things that weren't 100% accurate, but this guy looks like he's dying.
You know what shocked me tonight?
What's that?
That he brought up the fine people hoax.
Oh, the Charlottesville thing.
Yeah, after Snopes trended everywhere, but them switching their view on it. Like, yes. That seems deliberate that they let him say that. Like, wouldn't you have hammered that home a lot too with everything else?
And the fact that Trump's response, before tonight, Ann Coulter said, okay, Trump, this is the way you respond to that. You respond about 2020 with BLM and Antifa tearing up American cities. You refute directly the words that were said. You did everything that she said in like her 3-stage thing. Trump ended up doing. I think he still follows her in a lot of ways, but she said, my God, he took exactly what I said for him to do tonight. And he refuted that effectively. Now, no one is walking away believing that fine people statement anymore. Like, Biden was able to carry water to get that whole thing that supposedly inspired him to run for office this time. Bullshit. But it supposedly inspired him to run for office again. That's completely off the table now. Now there's no what is the justification for him to run again at all? Like what is his own personal reason for doing this? At least Trump has one saying this guy is so bad, and
Right.
I could be on a golf course right now. I could be retired, but no. And then the second I decided to run, this guy attacked me. So I really don't want to be here right now, but I'll do it.
How about that January 6th reframe that Trump had?
Ooh, that was a good one. Reframing it to Nancy Pelosi, and her daughter's a documentary filmmaker.
And he also is like, on January 6th, we had a great economy. On January 6th, we had at first I was like, oh my God.
That was fantastic. It would be like if, I can't even imagine like another version of that. Like another, I was going to say it'd be like if on 9/10 someone said that, we had a great economy, we were doing well, and then 9/11 happened. But it was such an excellent reframe of that, because that's going to resonate with people with the main question that all these debates have been trying to solve in the past 40, 50 years is, were you better off 4 years ago? Or are you better off now?
Yeah.
He tried to take over the country with a coup. Well, and I could afford groceries.
Right.
No one believes that, by the way.
In January 6, 2021, I was going to Charleston every weekend, and I had money left over at the end of the month. Now I could not do that if I wanted to.
Oh, 100%. I remember stocks being so far up that it was like I could make a living off of doing this, and and be able to save money, create a retirement account. That's not on the table now.
And it is a brilliant reframe, but most of all, it shifted everything from something that everybody cares about to something that very, very few people care about. The people who really, really care about January 6th, who are still afraid when they talk about it, who, they really think the boogeyman is going to get me if democracy isn't saved. They care about it. The people who are donating to NPR, they care about it. But average people do not care about it at all. They do not feel that there was a threat. There's very few people who have latched onto this idea that our democracy was almost lost.
I watched the wheels turn that day live. It's one of the scariest things I've ever witnessed, because going into that, it was like that day was, objectively hilarious. And the only people who I visited DC about 10 months after January 6th, 11 months. And they were the only people in the country I'd ever spoken to who were still latched onto that. And I think because it was local and because they knew people who were there that day and things like that, fences were still up or God knows what. But everywhere else in the country, it was like, that was not, them trying to reframe this as it being this enormous terrorist attack didn't work at the time. And it's not, and clearly it hasn't resonated since.
I was thinking the other day, and I've thought this before, the test run of January 6th was the Covington kids scandal in 2017.
Like, what can we get away with?
Yeah. And I think that was just a big test. And it took less than 2 days. And you have someone like Tim Pool that put him on the map saying, oh, no, we triangulated all these different videos. And we see that the kids didn't even know that this Native American was there.
Right.
And then after that, everybody took a note of it. And when January 6th happened, people weren't allowed to upload their videos on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram. And so they were able to suppress that raw data. And if it hadn't been suppressed, we would have found out in less than 24 hours. Okay, it looks like there's a couple of Antifa there. Who was that guy? Ray Pete?
Epps.
Yeah, Ray Epps. Sorry, Ray Pete.
Ray Pete was there on January 6th.
He was eating his sugar, eating his flour.
He threw a carton of orange juice at the speaker's podium.
Police died of vitamin A toxicity on January 6th. Yeah, Ray Epps. Like we would have pointed that out in a second. The BLM writer that got Ashley Babbitt to go through the door when she got shot. We would have seen all this really fast, and it wouldn't have gotten as far as it did. But now, when I hear people mention, "But we had a coup," I think that they kind of are like, "Yeah, we know that that old lady was there with a flag."
Which wasn't even there. Which wasn't even it wasn't even there. I was one of those memes that just gets created. She was in like the Minnesota State House or something. Like she wasn't.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's interesting. So I think they kind of know that it's not a real thing, but they say it anyway because they think that some people still think it can be used.
Right.
All
I know is that if you look at the performance of the stock market and other industries on pre-January 6th and after January 6th, there were some very strange anomalies that happened after that point.
Like
and
what?
A lot of stocks like Tesla's and big stocks were really going up and then just sort of crashed after that. She didn't recover for a while. And it was a very odd thing that happened. And I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot that maybe someday we'll find out about it. But at the time, the day of, it was just silly.
I'd be curious to know from both of you, what did you think the weaknesses of both Trump and Biden were?
I thought Biden, well, he looked like a corpse talking. And like that's what it reminded me of. I thought, oh man, he looks reanimated. And I think there's some other jokes going around. They're calling him a zombie and stuff like that. I saw a meme, and they're doing the Judge Judy meme of that one guy with his mouth open like this, and then Judge Judy went. They're doing that, yeah.
Your car hit his car in the rear. It's one of my favorite memes.
Yeah, so they're already doing that, and that was obvious. There was times when he was spaced out and he had his mouth open, and then one time he closed it abruptly, and I thought, did someone tell him what to do? So I think his presentation was just awful. I don't think his speaking. I don't think there was one positive thing that Joe Biden said. I don't think there was one positive thing. There's not one positive thing to say about him at all. Some of Trump's weaknesses, I think that I was having a hard time seeing any weaknesses because I was really impressed with how he was, reframing things and responding to what he could do with the microphone. I think what he said about abortion was probably alienating to some pro-life people, and he immediately said, you got to win elections. Like, that's why I'm for the abortion pill. I thought that was kind of a weakness, and he kind of moved over it pretty quickly. And I think that there are, he didn't say anything that was conservative, that was very conservative. It didn't seem radical. Someone might say he just seems so extreme and conservative. He talked about his 3 great Supreme Court justices. Meanwhile, Amy Coney Barrett's always doing something shitty with her First Amendment thing that she just did this week. I absolutely hate her. I think she's a disaster. And then, he also talked about the mandates. They mandated this. Mandates happened under him too. And he started the vaccine. So there are a lot of things that a lot of people on the right don't like. A lot of people on the left don't like either, like the vaccine mandates and the vaccine. And Donald Trump did that. And that's probably a big weakness. And it didn't even get highlighted because their candidate, the Democrat candidate, is horrible. Couldn't even say anything about it. And they have to be they kind of both have to be for the vaccine and both have to be against the vaccine now. And but it was just a one man boxing match tonight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a very good description. I'll start with Trump's weaknesses because I'm a perfectionist about some things. And so there were 2 questions he didn't answer wholly. And it was the childcare one. Actually, nobody answered that. So what was the second question? The second question was the one about the fentanyl. He alluded to it via immigration, which is how you should, but he didn't mention addiction, which I think it would have been nice for him to mention. That question could have been a layup for Biden too, talking about his son and addiction and everything, and he didn't bring it up because, for whatever reasons. So I think that the staying on topic thing, people are going to get a little bit annoyed by that. He drifts a little bit when they want him to like kind of stay in a lane. And there was one very, very, very quick misspeak where he misspoke one word, but then caught it just as soon as you or I, or the three of us would. So that was, I think, all in all, very small potatoes. And Coulter was a little bit upset at his Super Predators comment and said that he shouldn't have mentioned that, talking about how Joe Biden said that because that's not going to resonate with anybody. But, that's just him, and it's part of the stump speech. So I think that those were Trump's weaknesses. Biden's weaknesses were evident. He never caught at any point. He was, to be quite honest, worse than I thought he was going to be. I thought at least he would have some of the energy that he had in the State of the Union, because the performance we saw tonight was a performance that we were expecting for the State of the Union, and he actually kind of kept it together for that. There was just none of it. It was just non-compos mentis whatsoever. I'll get to Biden's strengths. Biden being able to recite a couple facts and figures was good for him. I know that they told him back in 2020 that if you approach Trump angrily, that you'll at least look like you're more on it. And so he took that advice tonight, I think, too far. He just sounded, he's complaining about the other guy's a whiner. He sounds like a whiner, just saying that. I think Trump's strengths were he was a lot more disciplined, which is always his weakness, than anyone expected that he would be, I think. And he brought up so many good points at the right times. I think about abortion, bringing up, the abortion pill and saying that it should be left to the states and taking it back to the founding fathers. I think that was smart. And talking about, pin him on late-term abortion, pin Biden on late-term abortions. I think he pinned him on that, because abortion is the one thing it's one issue I think he's smarter on than most people on the right, especially now. And him bringing it back to immigration so many times. Immigration and crime are the biggest issues. I wish that crime and homelessness were brought up a little bit more. But immigration, him bringing it up the way that he did, and as many times as he did, 18, 19, 20 million illegal aliens, got Biden to say the word illegal alien, not undocumented workers, but that he just dominated in all of these categories. And so for that, I think it was a very good performance. Now, I know some people who expected more out of Trump or said his performance wasn't as great, but it was overshadowed by the other guy being 3 times as worse. So, there's also that out there, but it was something.
What about you, Paul? What are the strengths and weaknesses that we might not have seen?
Well, I would have to agree with Wyatt that it did seem like there were times that Trump didn't answer the question. And I think even though he had his agenda to further elaborate a previous point, if he would have just maybe even briefly glossed over it, it would have maybe been more satisfying as a viewer. Because I'm thinking about the people that are on the fence who are out there watching. And I thought they wanted that. They wanted an answer, even if it was a brief one. Biden's weakness, his biggest weakness, was appearance, lack of control of his face. He appeared bizarre over and over. He would just do the whole he didn't seem like a person who was in control, and that's bad. So that's my take. Now, we just have a couple minutes left. Anything else that you all would like to throw in before we call it a night?
I think that they were both thrilled that RFK was not on the stage, because it would have distracted from Biden's performance, and then he might have attacked Trump, and then they go back and forth, and you're distracting from Biden's actual thing. But then he would have also been able to hammer Biden too, and then that would have made him look weaker. So it's kind of a good thing for everybody that he wasn't there. Much as, in Ross Perot, when he was in a debate, he kind of turned off a lot of people by that sort of 3-way argument. So it's nice to have just 2 people. CNN should be commended. God, I can't believe I just said that. It hurts. For how they conducted themselves. The moderators were not fact-checking live like Candy, big Candy Crowley. Candy Eater Crowley last time, stepping in and fact-checking live was terrible. But Jake Tapper and the blonde did a very good job.
Dana Bash,
yes. Yeah. The mic The cutting off of the mic thing, a little bit annoying, but okay, that's fine. Do wish there was an audience, but then you have to wait for the audience. So I'm kind of glad that there wasn't, in a sense. People were worried that would hamper Trump, but I don't think it did at all. As far as like debates being run, I think this is one of the best. And they brought everyone back to the questions. Like, okay, you have another 80 seconds if you want to finish that out to answer that question. Biden and Trump both stumbled at that because Trump would go back to whatever he was talking about. Biden had nothing else to say. He went through his prepared answer. So I think that CNN should be commended for how they handled this. It was one of the best debates that we've seen in the past 3 or 4 cycles.
I would say I want two parties that love the country, and maybe only half of a party does. The Democrats have always been corrupt because they have the super delegates. They could have had a wonderful candidate in 2020. They could have had someone interesting like Marianne Williamson. They could have had Marianne or RFK this time. And the Democrat voters never got the opportunity because their party is so corrupt that they would never let that happen.
They could have had Bernie at some point.
Right. They could have Bernie.
Well, thank you both for coming on here and talking with me. It was satisfying for me and for all the people who tuned in. Thank you all so much for your interest. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Wyatt. Thank you, Paul.
All right. Thanks, guys. And I guess my closing statement would just be this, and this probably will make some people mad. Let's just call it what it was. It was a good show. Can we agree on that?
It was a perfect show.
It was perfect. And it's not me saying it. Everyone's saying it.
Many people are saying it, and they're saying it very strongly.
Right.
Very strongly.
All right, gentlemen. Have a great night. Thank you so much.
Later.
Good night. Bye-bye.
We thank you and appreciate you dropping in for the Paul Leslie Hour today. You can help the Paul Leslie Hour in our mission to provide independent media content like this by visiting www.thepaulleslie.com/support. We truly thank you. This is your announcer speaking. Performance of The Entertainer intro song and Corina outro song, courtesy of John Primorano. Well, that's it for today. So until next time, be safe and be good.